Hello and welcome to this video tutorial brought to you by Tutvid.com. Today we're going to take a look at creating a Spry drop-down menu in Dreamweaver CS4. Now, here in Dreamweaver, creating these CSS-style drop-down menus is an absolute breeze with the Spry functionality. Super easy to create the menus and then to go on and edit them. We're going to take a look at all of that. How do we place it in our page, and then how do we go and edit it to make it look the way we want it to look. And really, I won't be able to cover every single way you could make this drop-down menu look without spending hours and hours on the topic. So I'm going to make it look something like this. You see we've got an image as the background color. And here, I will preview it in a browser. You can see basically we roll over, and there's a different colored rollover. And then we roll over the buttons. And here we've got a sub-menu. And, you know, all of these buttons can be linked to different things as well. So that's the drop-down menu. Very easy to create. So let's take a look at how to create that. So here we are in an HTML file, which we actually created in a different video tutorial you can find over on Tutvid.com. And this is just a super simple two-column CSS layout. But what we're interested in, obviously, is the navigation bar. And right here, I have this div tag set aside, which I had planned is going to hold the navigation bar. So basically, I will just delete this bit of text out from inside of this div. There we go, just the delete key. And real quick, let's take a look at the code. Right here, you can see it's just a simple div tag, div with the ID of navigation. You can give it any ID you want. I like to give all of my divs IDs, especially when I'm styling them with CSS. It really helps. But the main thing here we want to be focused on is just make sure you select inside of the proper div. And in this case, I want this navigation div. So I'm going to select inside. I'm going to go back to the design view. And next, you want to come up to your toolbar and find the Spry section. Here's the Spry section in this one. And what we want to do is choose Spry menu bar. Now, when we choose this, note we have the option of a horizontal orientation or a vertical orientation. In this case, we want the horizontal drop-down menu because we want the drop-down menu to go across the screen, not up and down, you know, beside this image, for instance, or anything like that. We want this to be a true drop-down menu. So we're going to hit OK, and it's going to place just a basic drop-down menu. You can see it's 4 buttons. 2 of them have drop-downs. You can see that is indicated by that little arrow image that's placed there. So we actually want this to have 6. So what we're going to do, whenever you work with any Spry, anything here in Dreamweaver, when you roll over Spry objects, as I'm doing here, you can see this blue tab shows up. If you want to edit the Spry object, just select that blue tab and notice the properties panel becomes populated with all of your properties for that specific Spry object or widget or whatever it is. So the first thing I want to do is we have these 3 levels of navigation. The first is the actual menu. You can see item 1, item 2, item 3, item 4, and that's these 4 right here. So I know that I want 6 buttons, so I'm going to hit the plus button twice, and you can see, well, check it out. We now have 6 buttons. We're going to name all these. So I'm going to name item 1 home. I'm going to name item 2 clothing. I'm trying my best to remember what I had these links set as. I believe the second one was accessories. The third one would have been contact, or the fourth one, excuse me, would have been contact. The 5th one, locations. And lastly, the 6th one was the pro gallery. All right, so there we go. We have our 6 buttons named. Now, we're really only going to mess around with one drop-down menu, so let's do it here under Home. And you can see I've got item 1.1, 1.2, and 1.3. This drop-down menu appears when you actually select it here. So I'm going to say, under Home, I'm just going to say Men. This actually should be underneath the Clothing button, but for the sake of time, we're not going to. Move it over. Women. And the third one here will be Children. Now, let's say you wanted to add another button here. You could just hit the plus button. And then you look at it and you say, you know what, I didn't need that. Use the minus button to get rid of it. You can also move these around in their stacking order. Let's say we want to move children up to the top. Just select it here and use this little arrow. So that, bump it right up to the top. Maybe you want it in the center or back at the bottom. We're going to leave it at the bottom for now. Now, let's say you wanted to start subdividing the men's clothing, it would be in this case, into different categories. So you'd select the men right here in the menu bar properties panel, and you would hit the plus over here for the third menu. You can see now we have this menu appearing beside the drop-down menu. And we will name this one, let's say summer clothing, and we'll add one more menu item for winter clothing. if we can spell winter correctly. There we go. So now under men, we also have summer and winter. Very nice. I will, however, hop over to locations, and we will just throw another submenu. Well, there already is a submenu there. Okay, we're just going to do that just so we can, have it, take another look at what's happening over here with this menu as we play with our CSS styles. Note also that when you select this menu, you can't add links to these buttons, okay, right here using link. That will actually add a link, so if you click home right here, it'll take you somewhere. If you select the buttons in the first level of the drop-down menu, you can link them to something. And then even in the third level of navigation, you can link them. So on all the levels of your drop-down menu, you can link to different pages and files and videos and sounds, whatever you want to do. You can do it all right through the Properties panel for your Spry menu bar. Notice also you have this option for target. That would be the underscore self to open the link in the same page, or underscore blank to open that link in a new page or new tab. So that's what the target is there for. Now that we have actually set up the Spry menu bar, let's take a look at the CSS. When we created this Spry drop-down menu, Adobe Dreamweaver created some JavaScript and some CSS styles for us. Now, they would normally be over here in the Spry Assets folder, but they actually don't really come into existence until you preview this page out on the web. Now you can see here in the CSS Styles panel, there is in fact this page called Spry Menu Bar Horizontal.css. However, it's not showing up in the Files panel, so what we're going to do, just to show it to you, it's not an absolute necessary, you don't have to do this to make this work, but we're going to hit F12, which previews this page in a browser, and Dreamweaver is going to say, hey, would you like to save this page? I'm going to say yes, absolutely, and here's where it's saying, look, I need to copy these supporting files into your site to make this thing work. And note, one is a JavaScript file, we've got 4.gif files and a CSS file. I'm going to say go right ahead, I want this drop-down menu to be functional. Now, when I roll over home, you can see my drop-down menu is, in fact, very functional. Awesome. So there is a simple drop-down menu. However, if you're creating this for one of your projects, you probably don't want to stop there. You probably want to make this thing look pretty nice. So I'm going to leave this menu fully extended, so as we work with CSS, we can see how the CSS is affecting our submenus and then our sub-menus. So what we're going to do is come over here to the CSS Styles panel and open up Spry Menu Bar Horizontal.css. And what I need to do is start looking at the coding structure, how this menu bar is actually laid out in our page. So I'm going to select inside of this menu bar, maybe click on Home, and go to the Code view. And the first thing I'm going to notice is that the entire menu bar here is encapsulated by this UL tag here. UL, and it has the ID of menu bar 1. This is this ID. I can change this anytime I want. And it is being styled by a class, menu bar horizontal. So these are two things I want to keep in mind, UL and menu bar horizontal. And when I look over here in my CSS styles panel, I can see that there's a CSS rule targeting the UL tag. And I happen to know that typically these names are divided by just a space. So when there's a period there, it means you're dealing with a class style. So that means that we're looking for a UL tag which has the class menu bar horizontal inside of it. And that's exactly what we have here. The UL tag with the class menu bar horizontal right within it. So I know that this style, or this rule, excuse me, is styling this entire tag, which is encapsulating my entire drop-down menu. Now, the style isn't doing a huge amount, or at least when you click on the CSS rule, it's not going to look that way. So that's not really going to be something we're going to be editing a lot. The first two things typically you're going to want to change with the drop-down menu are the size of the buttons and the background color, or maybe you want to place a background image in there. So that's what we're going to take a look at doing first. First up is changing the size of the buttons. Now, to save a little bit of time, I'm just going to tell you that these buttons here are these LI tags. You can see within UL, within the UL tag, we have these LI tags. So the first thing I want to change or look at changing is ul.menubarHorizontal LI. So within the UL tag that's being styled by the menu bar horizontal class, I want to target those LI tags. And those LI tags are going to allow me, or are what hold each of these individual buttons essentially. So when I come over here to box, you can see that right now the width is 8 ems. I want this menu bar to be roughly as wide as my site, and I happen to know that roughly the size of my site, or the width of my site in ems, is 8.2 ems right here. Excuse me, it must be 8.3 ems. There we go, it's 8.3 ems. So there you can see we just changed the size of the buttons. If I wanted to make these smaller, sure, I could scale them back to 6 ems. You see that it's much smaller now. Now notice this, only the buttons on my actual navigation bar are changing. The submenus still are not changing. Those are UL tags within the UL tags. You can see here we've got UL menu bar horizontal UL. So if I come into this, go to the box category, note the width is still 8 ems. I can extend this. Let's make it 12 ems. Let's go kind of nuts. Okay, you can see that I just have the border sticking out now, and I can show you how to fix that. But we're not going to be worried with that right now. We're going to put that back to 8 ems, and we're going to hit OK. What we actually want to do is come back to that LI tag, set the box, go width 8.3 ems, hit OK. It's going to expand us right out nicely. Next, we're going to come over here to the UL, and we are actually going to expand this to about 10 ems. And remember, it's only going to expand that border. Don't panic. Actually move the CSS panel. I'm going to stretch it out a little bit. Now we have this UL menu bar horizontal UL.menu bar submenu visible. And this, if we look at our source code again, we're looking for UL tags within UL tags that have the class menu bar submenu visible. And when we look closely at it here, we can see that that class is not down in here. It's not really used here. So anytime you run into one of these CSS styles, and you're probably not going to use all of them, I can almost guarantee you're not going to use all of them in every single drop-down menu you create. So if you come across one, you're not sure what it's doing or why it's there, head over to the CSS file, and you can get to it by just selecting it up here or by double-clicking it here in the CSS styles panel. It'll open it up. And above all of these CSS rules, Adobe has a little note basically explaining what this style's doing and, all of that good stuff. Just giving you a little bit of info on, what's going on, help you kind of get your bearings, as far as what's going to happen if I change this or why is this here and all that good stuff. So it's a good idea to come check out the CSS file. It's not that complicated, and hey, if you don't know how to do the CSS, just focus on the notes. So then you can come over and work in Dreamweaver CSS editor to make the actual changes. So we're going to come back to our source code, go to our design view. I want to finish filling this border out, so I'm going to choose the UL menu bar horizontal UL LI rule. And I'm just going to come to box and set the width to 10 ems. That's going to take care of that for us. Hit OK. Wonderful. So now that we've sized our buttons, we're going to take a look at creating a different background color and rollover color. Now, because these are all links, the easiest way to get in here and just change all of these is by going to UL, menu bar, horizontal, and A. That is basically targeting the A tag within the UL tags being styled with the menu bar horizontal class. So that's going to take care of all of these links here. So I'm going to double click on that, and I can note my box here. I have padding spreading me away from the edges a little bit, which is very nice. But we're going to take a look at the background. Right now it says very light gray. We're going to give it a very light blue. Hit OK. You can see we've got a very nice light blue. Next we want to change the rollover state. So we don't want this first option right beneath it. We want the 1-2 beneath it, the UL menu bar horizontal A, and the A, which is then being styled with the class menu bar item hover. It's a very long style, as you can see. I'm not going to read the whole thing off. And that's what we want to target. So we're going to double click that, and we're going to set the background color to sort of a teal. We're going to hit OK. Now that we've done that, I'm going to hit F12. It's going to say, hey, you need to save those files. Yes, I'm going to save them. And you can see, there we go. Our links now have these nice rollovers. So now that we've done all of that, we're going to set an image as our background graphic, as our background color almost. So how do we do that? Well, it's quite easy. What I want to do is come over here to Bridge, and you can see I've got an image called sprydropbg.jpg. I'm going to open that up in Photoshop, so I'm just going to drag it over here into Photoshop, and I'm going to zoom in on it. So really any image. Now, I happen to know that my drop-down menu is about 35 pixels tall. You might want to measure your div tag, or actually take a screenshot and measure your box here. And just get, basically a decent measurement so you know what size you're dealing with. I know that this is 35 tall, so I just have a 100 by 35 document here. And this is basically going to be my rollover. I'm going to increase the contrast, however, or maybe I'll just increase the saturation a little. Command or Control U here in Photoshop to open up Hue Saturation. Bump up the saturation, maybe darken it just a wee bit. Hit OK. And I want to size this down. So I'm going to go Image size, and notice I've got constrain proportions shut off because I want to size the width down to 1 pixel. That's all we need. 1 pixel, there we go. Now I'm going to hit Control Shift Alt S. On the Mac, that'd be Command Shift Alt S, and it's going to bring up the Save for Web and Devices dialog box. And here I'm simply going to save this as a .gif file. 32 colors is fine. I'm going to hit Save, and right here in the Spry drop-down menu folder, I'm going to hit Save. Now I'm going to create the rollover image, so I'm going to go File, Revert. It's going to revert the file to the way it was when I opened. Now I'm going to hit Command or Control U again, and I'm just going to darken this a little bit, and I'm going to push the saturation up quite a bit. I'm going to hit OK. Again, Command Option I or Control Alt I to bring up the image size. Double check, make sure constrain proportions is not on. Set the width to 1. Control Alt Shift S or Command Option Shift S to save for web and devices. We're going to save this guy as Spry Drop BG, and I'm just going to place a capital R and O at the end of it, indicating that that is the rollover image. Okay, Control W or Command W to close it. Head back over to Dreamweaver, and I am going to come over here to my Spry drop-down menu folder and bridge. I'm going to grab both of those files, holding down the Command or Control key, and I'm going to drag them over into Dreamweaver, and I'm going to drop them in the Images folder. So now that we've done that, let's take a look at how we can use those images as our background image for this drop-down menu. Remember, just a couple seconds ago, when we changed the color of this drop-down menu, well, we're basically going to go into those same rules, the UL menu bar horizontal A and the UL menu bar A dot menu bar, so on and so forth, and it goes on and on and on. So we are going to double-click the first one, which is that UL menu bar horizontal A, go to the background area, and we're actually going to make sure the background color is set to none. If I apply that just like that, you can see we just get basically boxes with text in them. I, however, want to set an image as the background, so I'm going to, hit the Browse button right there like that, and I'm going to hit Site Root just to ensure that I'm within my site. Double-click on the Images folder, and come down here to Spry Drop BG, hit OK, and the background repeat, we're going to repeat along the X-axis, and we're going to hit OK. And you can see what's happened. We've got this nice image as the back of most of our buttons, and I'll show you why these buttons are being stragglers in just a minute. But for now, we're going to take care of the hover, the rollover as well. So go to Background, set the background color to none, and choose Spry Drop BG RO for rollover, and again, background repeat along the X. So hit OK, and we're going to hit F12. We're just going to save those files and preview this. You can see when I roll over, very nice. When I roll over here, it still gives me that blue, and when I move down over these, it gives me my correct rollover image. But notice all of the buttons that have another submenu attached to them show up as having both no background and the incorrect rollover. So how do we fix that? Well, those are separate styles within here that we need to change. So basically, to get these to change, we have 4 rules that we have to change. Basically, the rules that say the buttons on the main bar that have drop-down menus, and then those buttons rollovers, and then the buttons on our submenu that have submenus, and those rollovers. So let's come right down here, and we've got these 4 submenu items, 2 regular submenu items, and then 2 hover submenu items. Let's look at the submenu items first. I'm going to double click on the first one, and this is the actual menu bar. So we're going to go background. Notice these already have a background image. Now this background image is that arrow. We're going to get rid of that arrow, so there's not really going to be any indication here that we have a drop-down menu, except for the fact that when you roll over it, the menu is going to appear. So what we're going to do is apply a drop-down menu of Spry Drop BG. We're going to hit OK, and we're going to repeat this along the X. We're going to get rid of the background positioning. Hit OK. You're going to notice that those buttons now have backgrounds. Lovely. Now we're going to try the submenu. So we're going to say background. Again, we're going to replace the background. Set the repeat to repeat X. Get rid of the background positioning. Hit OK. And now all of our buttons have, the correct color. So now notice we have a couple problems. The rollover is still, messed up. And then after we have rolled over, it doesn't look quite right. So let's take a look at how we can fix that. So I'm going to close that out. We're going to go back to Dreamweaver. First up, fixing the hovers at breeze. We're just going to choose those, basically the same rules, just with the word hover affixed to the end here. And we're going to choose background and choose the background rollover, repeat X, get rid of the X and Y positioning for the background. Rid of background and do the same exact thing. Grab that rollover background, repeat X, get rid of the X and Y positioning. Okay, I'm going to preview this once again, hit F12, and here we go. Now you can see that it looks like our issues have in fact been solved. Wonderful. So you can see that very easily, and it took a little while to do all of the explaining, but literally I could set this drop-down menu up in 10 minutes or less. It's really a breeze when you start doing it and you really start playing with it. It's really, really super easy. Matter of fact, we're going to come in here to UL, menu bar horizontal UL, and notice here, this is the sub menu, just as a sort of a quick bonus thing I'm going to tack onto the end here. The margin here is negative 5% from the top and 95% from the left. That's because this, if it was 0 from the left, well, you'll see it would just come right on top of our original drop-down menu. We don't want that. So I'm actually going to place this 100% to the left. You're going to see it's going to line it up nicely with that edge. And I'm going to set it to be 10% from the top, so that it's sort of bumped down from our menu. You know what, maybe we will stick with 95% from the left just to give it a little bit of overlap, just like that. So now our menu will sort of cascade nicely down the page as if it could, keep going. Hit F12, save that. Let's check out what we did. See? And now the drop-down menu shows up, out here where it's away from the other menu. And we can, click whatever we want. And that is how you create a simple drop-down menu using Adobe Dreamweaver's Spry menu bar. Super easy to do, I'm telling you. Once you get your head around the CSS stuff and what the different links and what the different styles do, it's really going to be a breeze for you. You'll be able to come in here, you'll be able to tweak it, you'll be able to play around with it. It's really nothing at all to be scared of. It's super easy to do. So I highly recommend you come in here and check it out. Get used to it. Get used to working with it, because it is a great way to create drop-down menus in Dreamweaver CS4. Thanks for sticking with me through this one. I certainly hope you've learned something. I hope you've enjoyed it. And please go check out the site. It's www.tutvid.com. Thanks for watching.